Thanks so much for having me here. It really is an honor to be here, to be at the table with people who I would never have the chance to meet. And I'm really grateful for Shannon and Gideon to have brought us here. It's really awesome. So I'm going to speak today about a collaborative producing model I created called the Reiser Project. And in terms of this overall conversation, overarching conversation about leadership that we're having, the model challenges how institutions can better support and create space for a new generation of artist leaders. So when I came home from Toronto after living 10 years abroad, no institution would hire me. Even though I had a stellar international resume, people weren't really willing to take the risk to work with someone they didn't know. Institutions were busy doing their own work, often led by or curated by a single artistic director, and their casting, well, let's just say, it may not have had the imagination to include me in their season. So I, like many, many other people, I was forced to form my own company if I wanted to make any kind of work. So I founded, I do that here. I founded Why Not Theatre in 2007. We're a Toronto-based theatre company with an international reputation for creating award-winning, innovative, and accessible theatre. Over the past 9 years, we've managed steady growth, increasing our operating budget tenfold, and developing over 25 productions, touring to 20 different cities on 5 continents. Now, this kind of success is rare, and we're super proud of it. And in 2013, we finally became an operating company at all 3 levels of government. So we were lucky. Our success propelled us to the front of a line, but so many of my colleagues were still waiting in an ever-growing queue to get into the operating stream, being told that they were highly recommended, but there was no new money, and they just have to wait a bit longer. So, new money was rare, and it had been for a long time, so I started to wonder about how the old money was being spent. So I asked, how can we better use the resources of existing companies, including my own, to serve more artists than just the single vision of one artistic director? So this would allow people to stop forming companies, and maybe artists could be paid to make a body of work and not become default administrators. So I continued to explore this question from 2011 to 2014 as the artistic director in residence at the Theatre Center, led by Franco Boni, which Roxanne talked about. Now, the Theatre Center's main focus is a long-term 2 to 3 year residency for the development of new work. And at that time, I felt like in Toronto, there were a lot of companies offering a lot of long-term development opportunities, but no one was offering support for your first-time production. Because how, as a young artist, are you able to build a body of work and a reputation to even be invited to get a long-term residency? Because producing in Toronto is very hard. There's a lot of competition, and more often than not, artists make work out of pocket, and it's unsustainable. So, with Franco Boni and my artistic producer, Owais Lightwalla, we set out to address the 3 main challenges that all independent artists face when producing new work. We identified the need. They are the high cost of production, building an audience to see that production, and access to space. So now, in order to address these challenges, artists have started to produce in festivals, like the Fringe Festival, or in Toronto we have Summerworks, because this solves some of the problems. It gives you a venue, gives you a cheap show, and a built-in audience to present it to. But the economics are impossible and unsustainable. There's no way to make any money. The rigid structure of a festival prevents you from actually making a full show. And more importantly, the gap between a festival production and a full production is a huge one. Producing outside a festival is a monster, and there isn't a lot of guidance to help you navigate the terrain. So, the Reiser Project, how it works. In its current state, Why Not Theatre brings 4 companies together to present their shows at the same time. We rent the Theatre Center for 6 weeks and run 2 shows in rep for 3 weeks, and the other 2 for the next 3 weeks. Each show is given a full tech week as opposed to a 4-hour block or something in a festival. Why Not pays for rehearsal and performance space, technical and production costs, and some marketing support, amounting to approximately $25,000 for each round of Reiser, so that supports 4 shows. The artists are responsible for their own artist fees through grants, and we provide the support to write them, and at the funding level, being part of Reiser increases their viability to receive funding. So we're able to do this because we received a huge $100,000 grant from the Toronto Arts Council through their Open Door program, which demonstrates how necessary this is and what impact new money can actually have. In the future, this money will need an organization to take on this subsidy, but I'll get to that in a little second. So along with the support we provide, we create a financial structure that shares resources between shows. And that amounts to a reduction of 30% to each production's overall budget. It makes their shows way more affordable to put on. We also provide much needed guidance and mentorship through the process of producing a show. Grant writing, production management, selling tickets, contracting, dealing with equity. So organizing and supporting this administrative burden, it allows the artists to focus time on their process and develop more artistic, rigorous work. Through partner companies like Necessary Angel, Modern Times, Nightwood, we provide senior artistic mentorship in the creation of work, again, which just creates better artistic practices, better work. Moreover, with 4 teams of people, plus the support of Why Not and these senior partner companies, we create a much wider base of people to attract a larger audience. So if you think about it, your small company, you have a listserv of 100 people, and now your e-blast goes from 100 people to 6,000 people, for example. So this is a diagram that shows you how this all works and how we all benefit. The artist is at the center, the venue receives rental income and an audience to build. The emerging artist is supported by these 3 sort of circles on the side. Why Not Theater has a revenue line as part of this, and we benefit by having a healthier ecology. And the senior companies, I'll talk about the benefit to them later, but it's an interdependent model where we all share the value of this. And in sharing the risk, we create better artistic practice and better success for those emerging artists in the middle. The artist is at the center of the diagram, and they own the work. So some key successes. In 3 years, we're in year 3 at the end of May, we'll finish year 3. We will have supported 12 full productions for less than $100,000. In the first 2 years that we've done it, shows have gone on to have numerous award nominations, and they've won a lot of awards as well. And by leveraging Why Not's touring relationships, shows have also gone on to international touring and festivals like Magnetic North, Push, and High Performance Rodeo. It's really great. These curators wouldn't necessarily come see these small shows that were done in Toronto. No artist took any losses or went out of pocket. Everybody made money. Audiences, we oversold all box office expectations. It was bananas. And it's an unexpected audience. This is a key thing. It was young, it was diverse, and it was reflective of the artists that were making the work. That's what's sought out, right? That's the audience we all want. So the point is that all of them were going to do these shows anyways. This model reduced their financial risk and allowed everyone to do better than they would have done on their own. The spending was more efficient and used to have greater impact on more people. Just quickly, so these are some of the logos of the senior partners. I'm running out of time. So I mentioned senior partners. These are companies that have been around for at least 25 years or more. They have operating budgets of about 400,000 or more and senior artistic leaders. In both rounds, at least one show was picked up and presented in a future season of that senior company. So this helps senior companies to look at themselves as local presenters and not just the generator of their own work or the work of one single artistic director. And this has huge necessary benefits for these companies. It expands their networks and their generation of collaborators. We've all been talking about new, fresh ideas in organizations. It expands their audience and the kind of work they make. It increases their relevance to a wider community, both for artists and for audiences. And it bridges an ever-widening gap between senior, mid-career, and emerging artists. And so their investment in Reiser is a very small amount of money. It has to be more in the future, but right now it's $3,000 to $5,000. And this is like the biggest takeaway for me. So this is how funding works in Canada at most of the levels of funding. So you have the age of the companies on one side and the distribution of funding there. You'll notice that there are fewer companies that are 25 years plus and a huge volume at the base, under 5 years. But the bulk of funding is going to the top small amount. So it's reflective of our 1% economy. Now, what we're trying to do with the Reiser Project is we're trying to encourage the top to invest the money down, circle it through the economy, and then there's all kinds of returns on the investment. There's better health in the community. There's actually revenue streams that can add up through touring and shows. More importantly, the base of the pyramid is where the diversity is. That's where the leadership is happening. And more often than not, like when I had to start Why Not, those companies are the ones with the direct links to communities because they're serving them. They have to. They have no money, no audience, and they're on the ground doing grassroots work. So philosophically, what we're trying to suggest is moving away from an independent theater community to an interdependent community, where success of one equals the success of all. So Why Not took a huge step in leading this initiative to solve major sectoral changes, and we've achieved significant results. We're 3 people, man. We had to hustle. But our funds are going to run out. So in the future, either a funder invests more in us to continue to roll this out, or a venue would have to step up, using their operating funds, or better yet, attracting a sponsor or a donor, which independent companies like me, I can't access. So you're a theater that presents 8 shows in a season, and instead of doing 8 shows, you do 7, and you reallocate the resources to invest in 4 new artistic projects with the knowledge that at least 25% of them will make financial sense in the long term. You can graduate them to your main seasons, you can tour them, et cetera, et cetera. What artistic voices would you be able to support? What leaders would emerge? What kind of audience would you build? And what if 4 theaters in your city did this in 1 year? It would have a huge impact on the community, and it wouldn't be that big of a risk because we have a model, and we're on track to prove it for a 3rd year in a row. And if you're a funder, ask your operating clients and venues, what are you doing to really give a platform to new voices? And I mean really. How does their success measure with our numbers? What responsibilities do operating companies have to support the voices of artists with no infrastructure? How can we ensure that senior companies with the bulk of the funds partner with different generations, unusual suspects, and a wide range of artistic voices beyond the voice of one single artistic director? Thank you so much for your time. I look forward to sharing these ideas and building on them as we're here for the next couple days.